Welcome to our Town Hall Thursdays with Third Path event. On every episode, you will meet thought leaders, role models, and change agents connected to the Third Path community, and today is no exception. In fact, all season long, we've been exploring how you can be a work care champion for yourself, your family, and at your workplace. And I think today's guest will really help you see what we mean. Hi, I'm Jessica Root. I'm the founder of Third Path Institute, and I'm really excited, as I said, about today's episode. And in fact, if you're inspired by what you see today, please share our podcast with someone you know as we keep growing our community of role models and change agents. Now, let me give you a quick, big picture look at what we'll be discussing today, and a little bit about our special guests. Okay, so if you've been on one of our episodes this year, you've heard me talk about that we're at an interesting moment in time where what I predict is the world of work will really, over time, develop into multiple forms of organizational forms. There will be many, many, many who normalize hybrid workplaces, but as we can see, some are returning to long hours work. And then there's places like Third Path Institute or 4-day workweek organizations that are normalizing, remote work or hybrid work and shorter work weeks. And hopefully there are also some organizations where they just do a variety of solutions because the kind of work that someone can do, some allows for hybrid work, some doesn't. So we're going to see a future workplace where there is more variation in how people can do work. But what's really happening at work? That's one of the things we're going to be talking about today. Yes, this is an opportunity, and this moment in time is an opportunity. But what I've really seen this year is it's not quite so straightforward. There's a lot of misinformation out there about the possibilities of hybrid work. The belief that when people are not on site, that they're less committed, that you can't collaborate unless you are on site, that you have increased distractions when you're working at home, as if we didn't have distractions when we were at the workplace, that you can't build strong connection, that there are challenges around scheduling. But the truth is, for anybody who's been part of a successful hybrid workplace, or like us, a fully remote workplace for over 24 years, that these things aren't true. In fact, there really are some amazing opportunities. And most importantly, it's the opportunity that leaders and managers can really do work differently. And when they do, what we see is they become people who are leading the way in promoting these different kinds of workplaces. If you want to meet some of these leaders, can go back to some of our past episodes. We had an amazing event in December with a couple of leaders who are doing work differently. All summer long, we're actually doing summer replays. You can find them on our website and listen to our recordings. So there's a real opportunity ahead of us, an opportunity for us to live an integrated life where we can change where and when we work, where we can change how much we work. That's something that Amy Beacom is going to be talking about. She's one of our special guests today. And we can also keep on making changes across the life cycle. This is something we can do not just for parents, but everybody and for all genders. So let me tell you a little bit about some of our special guests today. I'm going to start by introducing Mike Mangino and Dr. Amy Beacom. They are both going to help us really think about the opportunity of today and some of the challenges of today. Mike Mangino is a licensed clinical psychologist who works with individuals, couples, and families. Dr. Amy Beacom is the author of the book, The Parental Leave Playbook, founder and CEO of the Center for Parental Leave Leadership. She's also the mother of 2 school-age children. And as you can imagine, that helps her really practice what she preaches.
Hi, Jessica.
Hey, Amy.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. And thanks for being here too, Mike.
Hi, Jess.
Mike was here for one of our events earlier this year where we talked about sharing the mental load. And so I'll be talking about how much wisdom Mike brings to the table in a second. But I want to start, Amy, with the idea that parental leave is such an incredible opportunity for in a two-parent household or a single-parent household, and for organizations to think really differently. In fact, to me, it's an opportunity for parents to really jump right into that idea of an integrated approach to work and family. They have this time, and your book does such a good job of how to help them make use of this time, where people can think about, okay, I know a baby's coming, and then I'm going to have this leave time, and then I'm going to re-enter the workforce. And I can really, and by using your book, I can make use of all of those different transitions to come back to the workforce in a way where this huge change has happened in their life. You know, they've been a worker and now they're a worker and a parent, and they can re-enter the workforce with this integrated approach. Starting with families, what have you learned that really helps families get to that place where they think in a more integrated way? And then I want to talk about workplaces too.
Okay, where to start with that? I think that what comes to mind is where you started, which is, for me, parental leave is the moment when families get to decide and get to have conscious conversations about how they want to set up their family and their work lives. And if they want to create that integrated approach, this is the time to start doing it. I think it's important just for level setting, because when most people in this country hear the words parental leave, they're thinking about a couple of things. They're thinking about paid leave only, and they're thinking about the time someone is away from work as parental leave. And the way that we conceive of this is, we talk about it as a parental leave transition. It's roughly a year of time as people prepare to welcome a child into their lives and go through that time that they may have at home, and then reintegrate back into work and their home life as that integrated worker parent that they are. And so unless we start to think about it that way, we will keep undermining ourselves both at work and at home. So having it as a time-based transition that has logical and practical and predictable moments throughout it allows us to prepare, to have conversations at work and at home to make it happen the way that we do. So I've since forgotten your question, but I
No
think
problem.
it's important to have that
Yes,
context.
I'll follow up with something.
Okay, great.
When parents use this opportunity the way that you're describing it, one reason why you're called the Center for Parental Leave Leadership is because what you saw was that when parents can think about this moment in time that way, they really develop excellent skills that are really beneficial to a workplace, and they can really continue in their careers very strongly. Talk more about that.
Yeah, my background is in organizational psychology and leadership development, executive coaching and leadership development. So I did that for decades before this, which is, we've been around, Center for Parental Leave Leadership's been around for 10 years. And what I saw when I became a parent 17 years ago was all of the things that I had been teaching people in very, very expensive offsite programs that companies were spending billions and millions of dollars on. I was learning quicker and deeper in this condensed time frame. And so I built the Center for Parental Leave Leadership to really harness this whole time frame as a personal and professional growth opportunity and developmental opportunity, and developed a coaching program and training program that we do with managers and parents to help them navigate both at work, which is underserved. And I believe that to help change the culture in our country around leave, that work is the place to start. And then also, of course, at home. So when it comes to parental leave and what parents can do as they think about this time is to really stop thinking about it as something a birthing mom only is doing, right? One, just basically, this is something that both parents, if there are two, are doing together, no matter their gender identity, the way that they become parents, any of those things. They're doing it together. It's a new phase of their career. It's a new phase of their home life. And like any big thing in our lives, it is deserving of attention and thoughtful evolving,
Yes.
thoughtful movement. So that is the first thing I would say. Just start to think of this time as something as a parent you're doing to create the future that you want. It's not just time away from work where you want to get paid.
Yes.
And then for a company, I would just add briefly, same, right? This is not just time you're paying people or not paying people to be away and you're scrambling to fill their roles. This is an opportunity to develop people's skills in cover roles while they're away and bring up rising stars. It is a way to change your entire culture. If you are a culture that is looking to move into a more flexible work schedule, this is the perfect opportunity to practice that and figure out the processes that make that happen well for your company. And it is also a moment to, I hesitate to use this word, but lean in to the development of those employees who are going on leave, both the birthing moms and everyone else equally.
Yay. I knew you'd say it all the right ways. This is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for parents. This is an opportunity for organizations to really seize this possibility that we can do work alongside of life responsibilities. And I can even remember when I was, a breastfeeding mom, that having working remotely meant that, yes, somebody else was in charge of the baby, but I remember my husband would bring in the baby and I'd, take care of the baby's needs, and then off goes the baby with my husband. So remote work actually also expands the possibilities of how we can make this all work well together. I'm sure you're seeing that too, Amy.
We absolutely are. So it's really fascinating the different ways that can play out as well. So if you have both parents, if they're two, on a remote work schedule, the creative ways that they have figured out, and everyone is different, but if an organization allows them the flexibility to figure it out, they figure it out and they want to stay in that role. They want to keep working at that organization. Their loyalty increases, their dedication and productivity, and all of the things that we measure ultimately go up. They go up when that flexibility and that autonomy are given to those parents. So we see really creative. I mean, I have moms pumping on calls with me all the time because it's just below the screen. Right? So they are pumping away and their colleagues might not know, or they have the baby come in and every once in a while you hear a little suckle, it's just the sweetest thing. But when that's normalized and invited in to an organization, that's when you're shifting culture, right? That's when you're creating a family-friendly workplace environment that is conscious and open to life.
I'm going to hold on to that word normalized, because I think that's going to be a big theme today. The opportunity of normalizing all this stuff. And Mike, you see this on the other end of things, as I will show later, there's, it's not like we have babies and then they suddenly don't have childcare. We have babies, and then we have school-age kids, and then we have teens, and then we have life after words with our growing children. We have elder care. We have all kinds of care needs across the life cycle. And you're working.
Sorry, Jessica, just parental leave is happening while those other things are happening. I think that's important too. Like they have elder care, they have older children, they have, sorry, I just want to, oftentimes people think parental leave is only
for this, and then there's this.
It's for, right? Like it's not, these are all, sorry, Mike.
In fact, maybe Mike has seen this, and probably you've seen this, Amy. There's a lot of data that shows it's the second child that's more challenging than the first child. So yes, your point is well taken. So Mike, you work with individuals, you work with couples. We're starting with a positive, helping where you've seen some couples do this well, this transition to parenthood or continued parenthood, either as a single parent or as a dual parent household. What are you seeing couples do well that helps them really succeed in making this all work?
Hmm. It's a great question. I think the couples that do this successfully, and you kind of can immediately read it on them. It's part of the air they breathe together, where it's not really either person's responsibility, or even if it's a single parent that's having help from somewhere else, it's like a language that people are speaking, that the equity of the responsibility is normalized. It's like there's not it's not abnormal to be asking for, we might have to tweak this here, we might have to, like, I'm gonna have to pump during this, this meeting today, could you take her while I'm doing that? And the other partner or whoever the caregiver is that's helping out is like, cool, great, so like then we'll fit. And the scheduling and the juggling is just naturally part of, it's basically as normalized as, what are we eating for dinner later? Like, how are we figuring out who's getting the groceries for that, and what are we? And I think the couples that do it well, make a point to, whether they started it when during parental leave or before parental leave, or they're figuring it out in their second or third kid, they're making a commitment to keeping that communication channel open and as a regular part of their everyday check-in with one another. It's not something that you start on a Monday and you check in on Saturday. It's like from Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday, it is constantly something that they're checking in about. And it sounds like it's like an extra burden for people that are already doing so much with parenting, but it's really, if it becomes normalized, it's actually no different than any other task that we're asking ourselves to do at any other point during the day. So I would really say, like, when I see it work well, you can feel it the minute they come into session. And it's like, it's just part of the natural balancing act, I think, of becoming a parent, is that you have to figure out how everything's going to fit into that 24-hour period.
Yeah.
And, if you actually come with a lens where it's structured, it sometimes actually makes it easier to, or if not easier, at least a little bit more predictable
Yeah.
than it,
Yeah.
it would be otherwise.
Yeah. And if some of you are listening in and saying, well, how could Mike be meeting couples who are doing so well? And how does Mike end up helping couples who are doing so well? Well, let me just be really clear. Jeffrey and I've always shared things. And there were some times when we had differences of opinions about how to share things, or how to raise children, or how to handle the elder care. And external help became really critical to our support system. So, nobody gets it right or knows all the answers all the time. And so people like Mike are an incredible resource to couples who've even figured out a lot on their own. In fact, this constant communication, there was something you said when we, I totally recommend our episode about sharing the mental load with Mike. There was something you said about a couple where they had Truth Tuesdays.
Mhm.
Tell us more a little bit about Truth Tuesdays. I loved it.
Yeah, it was this one couple I was working with. I actually still see them, and that's a great example of a couple that, like, does sharing the mental load quite well, and they still come in because they feel like maintenance. It's like a car has to continue to get maintenance even if it's working on the road, and like, why wouldn't a relationship or communication be the same thing? They made a point in their week. They realized they were both juggling their respective careers. They worked full time. They had kids from separate marriages and came in together. They realized that if they didn't build in time to check in with one another, it was so easy for days, weeks, months for them to really get honest with one another about where they were feeling strained with each other. And it was also from, like, their relationship perspective as well, that not even just as parents in the household, but between you and me, like, how authentically can I tell you how I'm doing right now if I don't have space to do it? And so they made a day. We had talked about, like, well, what's the best way that they can do this? Let's just start by picking a day of the week and just do that. And they used alliteration and picked Tuesday because Truth Tuesday just kind of worked for them. And they made it a point every single week without fail, even if it was a 5-minute check-in of, like, I got to share my truth this week. This is what I'm bring. Everything seems fine. I just want to check in and see if you're doing okay. And the other person was like, yep, just like was a little annoyed before when, like, the garbage bag leaked, bringing it outside. Like, and if it was that minor, great. There were some weeks where they would spend 30 minutes really airing I didn't really love how that conversation with our friends went at dinner. It felt like, when we were talking about this or that, I didn't really feel supported. Or it could be like, when we were like making dinner for the kids the other day, it just didn't really feel like, I felt like we had kind of said we were going to do it together, but then I ended up really doing most of it. And it just provides this landing pad each week so that we're not carrying conflict into the next week with us. And when you're a parent and you're juggling everything you have to do, it is so easy as couples to say, we'll deal with it later. It'll be
Yeah.
fine. But really, you start to see that conflict compounds over time. And if you give it space to air out like once a week, even for just 10, 15 minutes, I really can promise you it will be better than not doing it at all. And
Yeah,
building it
no.
in as like an anchor in the week, I think sometimes can just be a helpful tool.
Mike, I couldn't agree with you more. And actually, Jeffrey and I had a Friday night date. It's a whole long story. I won't tell right now, but it's so important. Let me just, underscore that. But Mike said something else, and Amy, I think you'll really pick up on this topic too. He was talking about identity formation. And he was saying that, what's going on as we become parents and then experience parenthood for so many years because our children are growing up with us, that we are learning about how we want to be a parent. How do we want to be a parent and a worker? This is not a steady state. We're not born a certain thing. We are developing, oh, I want to be that person who's got a really equal or equitable relationship with my partner. I want to nurture that relationship with my partner. That's part of my identity, is having a strong relationship with the other parent. And so there was this opportunity of, seeing this experience around parenthood as kind of really growing ourselves and our sense of who we are. I want to go switch back to Amy for a second, because I think that's, again, what you're trying to talk about, is that this transition to parenthood is a chance. You really do a lot in your book to encourage people to stop and think about, what do I want? Who do I want to be? Does that resonate with you, Amy?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, that's what it's all about. It's fundamentally what it's all about. The way we talk about it is you're going from your worker identity to your parent identity, and then you're having to learn all the new roles and responsibilities and identity, all the things, and then you're going into your working parent identity, and that will shift with second, third, fourth child. And so our coaching program and our method is called Retain Parental Leave Coaching, and it's an acronym, but oftentimes organizations will think that's just about retention of employees, and we're actually talking about the retention of the parts of you want to bring forward, making room for the ones you want to incorporate, all of those things. But I think what you made me think of, Jessica, is something that happened this week, which was a little happy accident for one of our we have a coaching institute and we certify parental leave coaches. It's the only evidence-based, actually the only certification for parental leave coaching in the world. But the cohort that just ended were doing their practice clients this last week. And one of them had a mom, and we do a values exercise at the beginning of one of the sessions. And it's basically just, you're picking your values off of a list and then you're operationalizing them to create a Truth Tuesdays or whatever it is that your value is, you're building that into your day-to-day, so that we really believe that the actions create the thoughts and the ways that, people move through the world. So the dad came in right in this call and he said, I want to do a values exercise too. And so they ended up both doing it and seeing that they had some overlapping values, but some that were not overlapping values. And then of their own accord, they decided to do a family values. And so they went through and they thought, who do we want to be as a family? What are our family values? So in a similar way that some families like make a family crest or a motto or something, right? And they built their family values together. And it was really powerful for this practice client coach to see how that simple exercise, which took 15 minutes, set them up for this new journey they were going on as working parents. They were in the preparing for leave stage. And So it just made me think of that and how important those types of exercises, thoughts are. That
Intentionality.
identity formation. So, and my point, Jessica, is there's that identity formation for them individually
And for their
and
family.
for
Love it.
their-
Yeah.
themselves.
So I wanted to start with the positive, but I also want to be realistic because it's not so easy, right? If it was so easy, well, you won't even go there, but we know it's not so easy. And so I want to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that are happening today, and just a little bit, because then what I want to do is introduce a couple who's put some of these ideas into action, and they too will talk about some of the opportunities and challenges too. So we're going to hear from a real, a couple that's really put these ideas into practice in a second. But even if we just stick with this idea of this moment in time, and I'm going to start with Mike around this because maybe you're seeing this with some of your clients. I was just speaking to one of the leadership groups we run, and we were talking about how this moment in time feels a little chaotic, that there is so much uncertainty. Is my workplace going to stay hybrid, or are they changing how they're going to, expect us to show up at work? A lot of unclarity even about like, how do we do this well? What is the norms? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? Am I going to be dinged because somehow I'm not doing it the right way? There's just a lot of unclarity. And with that unclarity and uncertainty, I think it just makes everybody more anxious. It becomes this kind of negative spiral. And so here we are trying to be these integrated workers who have family and work, but we're going into workplaces or we're, joining them in a hybrid way. And there's a stress that's happening at work and how that stress shows up in families. So my sense is that's always part of life, some stressful times for work, but maybe at this moment in time, there's even a little bit more stress. I don't know if you're seeing that, Mike.
Absolutely. I would say like in this particular zeitgeist, it feels like people are kind of getting it from every angle, like at work, from social media, from friends and family, from peers. I think couples now feel more pressure than ever before. And I would especially say post-pandemic, feeling like the need to quote unquote get it right feels really, really paramount. And I think a lot of it, this is the psychologist's brain kind of speaking in my mind, is that it comes from I believe that in one way it really comes from a lack of ability to really be where our feet are. Like we're so scattered thinking about so many different things and juggling as much as we are that, especially when you're talking about parenting, it's such a beautiful moment. Like the whole act and role of parenthood is really so beautiful if you think about what it is. And it's a shame that people are really struggling to really be present in it because they want to do so much and they want to get it right, or they're seeing this parent do this and I'm not doing that, or your workplace is better than mine is because it doesn't offer this. And it is really, really tight and tough. And I think a lot of where I start couples off is really asking themselves to think about what is it that they're even feeling for themselves when they might be feeling that misalignment or that higher stress of like, where are you feeling imbalance? Where are you feeling like you need more support? Where are you feeling like you need, a little bit of relief in your life? Because I tailor all of my therapy specifically to who I'm working with. So it really like, I've got a great arsenal of tools, but I really want to make sure that I'm targeting it for who it is that I'm sitting with and what they need specifically. And I think sometimes people don't even know what they need when they have so much going on. So I think first we have to start by asking folks like, where do you feel like you actually need the most help right now so that you can feel just even a little bit more grounded in your feet, in what you're doing.
Yeah. And thank you for I guessed you were seeing this, and I'm going to share a quick example. Amy, I'm going to see if you have something quick you want to say, but then I do want to introduce our couple who's kind of put these ideas into action. Because, you've probably both heard me say this. I don't want to say that third path's promising nirvana. Integrated life is just perfect all the time. I'd be the first person to tell you that there are times when it's felt overwhelming because we're encouraging people to have work that's important to them and family that's important to them. And sometimes there's overload on one or both of those elements. And I think it's exactly what Mike said. Overwhelm happens. We can handle a little bit of, this and that problem, but then we get to a certain place where there's just too much going on. We feel scattered and it feels really overwhelming. It is the level of different things all happening at once that makes us feel overwhelmed. And all of us need to develop skills to figure out what Mike's talking about. How do we figure out what's overwhelming? How do we create some space in our lives to kind of step back and reassess and figure out, is this temporary? Is there something I can change? It's going to be a lifetime skill you need, but I think it's going on especially right now. And we're going to talk more about that with the couple that will be joining us in a second. Amy, you might have something you're dying to say. Nothing required if you don't.
I just agree with what you're seeing and what you're both saying you're seeing. We're seeing it even more. And I think there's because we're at this intense time frame where everything's intense and important and huge. And what happens when what I'm seeing happen when people get overwhelmed is they start to prioritize what they care about. And family's going to win on that every time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's important for organizations to consider ways to unoverwhelm, right? What are the things that can be taken off of plates? Not just organizations, but parents. You don't have to have a to-do list. You can have a don't do list, right? Like, take things off, because what we hear is people asking, what do I care about? What's most important to me? And that's where work does start to genuinely suffer and take a backseat, which when they get out of this season of their life will be a problem. So.
Yeah, there's lots more we could say about this, but we'll let a couple talk a little bit about this. And I'm going to show a couple slides to get us started on it. So wonderful comments so far. Thank you so much. This has been awesome already. All right, that glass in the middle is that idea that sometimes things feel a little overwhelming and sometimes we need to cut back on work to create more space for family, for transitions that are happening that just require a little bit more space. We have our families for a long time, and those moments when we might need to cut back to create more space for family can happen for all kinds of reasons across the life cycle, including around when we are managing elder care, or maybe we're managing family and elder care. So I was talking about this moment in time and how it feels like there's an awful lot going on. It feels very chaotic or overwhelming. And I want to talk a little bit about how when we start with more core clarity, whether you're a single parent or a two-parent household, you really get clear about what's important to you. It helps you create that North Star to help you manage those moments and times that are more challenging in a smarter way. What's really important to you? What's really important to your partner if you have one? And how can you make sure you can afford your goals, work and life goals? And so we're going to have Austin and Mary Dowd join us. I was really pleased that both of them were available to come today. You're going to hear a little bit about how they've made choices over time to set up their family. And we're also going to talk about this moment in time and how this is playing out for them. If you're here live for our event today, you're going to hear parts of the conversation that won't be part of the recorded call, because we've really asked them to speak truthfully about what are some of the opportunities and challenges that they're facing. Hey, you two. Thanks for being who you are. Soon our audience will hear why I'm so excited that you're both here today. I've known Austin for a long time. I had the pleasure of meeting Mary more recently at our Parents Forum. And they really represent something that Third Path's been pushing hard for 24 years. Next year's our 25th anniversary. It's the idea that all genders can do caregiving really well, and that all jobs can be redesigned so that we have time for work and caregiving. And as we hinted at, sometimes there's challenges around that. But when in a two-parent household, both parents have a kind of similar North Star, they can really support each other to reach for those goals together. Austin, you want to start by telling us a little bit about your family history? How did, the 2-minute version of how old are your kids now, and how'd you get here?
I don't know if that's a 2-minute conversation. We'll start with the now. We have 2 boys, 14 and almost 11. Within like weeks now, we'll have a preteen and a teen in the house. So, and they're both home today. Yesterday was the last day of school, and so we're back into the like work and caregiver role model at the moment. School is no longer a barrier, I think, to our day. So there's new barriers for summer, which is the fun challenge of this week. But yeah, my path to this point has been very zigzaggy, a little unconventional. So I think when we initially met, I was a stay-at-home dad, was running a play group for at-home dads in my local area, and heavily involved with the National At-Home Dad Network as part of their convention planning committee, and eventually as part of their board. And then since then, transitioned into trying to run my own business as a small business commercial photographer. And then the pandemic hit, and like everybody, it just kind of threw everything up in the air. And everything before the pandemic, we just called it long ago. In the current time, I am now a data analyst. I use the pandemic as an opportunity to go back to school, learn more about what it is I'm good at. And so now, instead of telling stories with photos, I tell it with data. But it's given me the opportunity to work in a field where remote work is a little bit more embraced, or at least by the companies that I've worked with so far, which has let me continue to maintain a model where at least I'm home. Maybe not as a like direct caregiver in any given moment, but I'm home when my children are home. I'm able to pick them up from school, which is something that Mary and I have definitely prioritized when it comes to like how we kind of model our own career focuses. So I think that was under 2 minutes.
Wow, fabulous. Great summary. And a great example of how things keep on shifting, both jobs and our children's needs. And how you guys kept on reinventing how you were going to solve it over time. Mary, did you know this was the family you were going to create? And where were some of the aha moments when you saw the benefits of what you guys have created together?
Gosh. Well, I did not think I would have children growing up. I did not come up in a very stable household, and so I just sort of never pictured myself being a mom. And one day my own mom made me realize that was because I never pictured myself with a partner who would be helpful. So when I met Austin, we met in high school, and we actually started dating in high school. And I remember pretty early on talking about that and being like, I'm not having kids, so if that's not cool, sorry. And he was always like, we'll figure that out when we get to it, but I love kids, and I could see myself being a stay-at-home parent. And eventually I got the baby fever. And we decided that would probably be the way that we went. And yeah, once he worked for a little bit after Emery was born, our 14-year-old. And it got to the point where it was just not working for us anymore. And that's when we decided for him to be home full time. And it definitely, I don't know if we could have done it another way. I don't know how people do it. Our kids are old enough now that they don't need constant care, despite what they think. And it's hard enough. I honestly, like when they were babies, I don't know what I would have done. And so that it feels normal to me, and it feels like, I wish everyone, could do that. Not everyone wants to do that. I didn't want to be the stay-at-home parent, even if I had the lower paying career or whatever. Yeah. So I don't know if that fully answered your question.
Oh, no, it's a great example of it. I really think it's exactly what I'm trying to talk about. And again, it's going to be different. Hopefully another theme, you're hearing is we want to normalize flexibility. We want to normalize that all genders can do care, but we also want to embrace that all families are going to look different, and so I hope you've been hearing that over and over again today in these different stories we're sharing. But, I do think we probably need to normalize that families need time. How families do that might look different. And, you know, somebody's North Star for their family might look different than your North Star. You know, but the idea that there's a benefit for families to have time. Some, like Jeff and I, we divided up the work week. You guys, you know, divided up who did which at the beginning. Some just want to make sure when they get home at the end of the day, work isn't spilling into their evenings and weekends, and it's not spilling into their vacations. You know, everybody's going to do it slightly differently, but families need time. We need time for our children. We need time for our relationships with each other. And so maybe that's what we need to normalize, is that, you know, to think that we can just work, and never really create time for family. That's not healthy for families. It's not healthy for society. And as what you've been hearing today, it's not good for organizations. And when you encourage people to think proactively and intentionally around their work and family needs, they can get smarter about how to do everything. We can expand the pie of who does it well to include all genders. So I hope what you're hearing today is people like Mary and Austin have been great examples of work care champions, and we can really do work and care differently. Here's where I want to go next. We're at an inflection point. We have workplaces that could be doing this smarter, and some are. And then we have workplaces that are going backwards. So I want to start with the positive. Austin, it sounds like your workplace has been pretty good about thinking about flexibility. Have they always been that way? Did the pandemic open their eyes? Tell me more about what's been working well.
So this company I'm working for now, I actually started during the pandemic, and they had at the time only hired locally. They're based out of Vermont in Burlington, and they're a tech group, and so they needed to kind of like ramp up a specific department. So I got hired in that ramp up when they just realized they couldn't support that resource need locally. And I think that was a huge paradigm shift for them. And I think what I saw with that was a shift into a remote work culture that worked well for them. And I was with them for maybe 8 or 9 months. And then I got a job opportunity working for a friend of mine who eventually became a mentor of mine within my field. And that lasted 1.5 years. And I saw that go from a great work culture to not great work culture, in the sense that like the demands and understanding of people's time, not only that, but what work actually is for everybody. And so when that kind of honeymoon phase ended, I guess, with that group, I started pulling every string I could to get back into the company I'm at now, because I knew that they would prioritize not only my value, but what I value. And so I feel like, you know, I just had a meeting with my bosses, and they, you know, they were glowing in the praise and what I bring to the team. And it felt weird, because a lot of that time during the day, I felt like I wasn't doing anything of value, but it's because when you're in a thinking role, it allows me a lot of flexibility to have that, because, you know, I've been told by bosses in the past, when you're in a thinking role, you're never not working. You're thinking about problems in the shower, you're thinking about before you go to bed at night, while you're eating dinner. And, you know, Mary and I working in the same field, she can definitely say that, like, there's a lot of conversations the two of us have about work because we soundboard off of each other. And so when a company understands that and what I need and to do my job and do it well, and giving me the freedom and the flexibility for that. Yeah, I just actually had a therapy appointment. I was talking to my therapist about a conversation I had with my boss this week about anxiety that I was having around specific projects, and how easy it was to have that conversation with them, and how easy it was for them to remove a lot of things from my plate that weren't necessities, but definitely giving me the headspace I needed to do my job well, and also not feel stressed out about what I need to do at home. And
Wow.
I've definitely found value. I told my therapist it would take quite a bit to pull me away from this group, because I feel like my boss gets it. I feel like his boss gets it. I feel like they value me, the person, and not me, the employee. And I think they see that by valuing me, the person, what I'm able to produce for them is much better than what they would get if I was, you know, punching the clock in and out and just measuring my time, and that's it.
Yeah. Wow. And folks who are listening in, I did not even know that Austin was going to have such a good story, because really the message is there are going to be workplaces that get it right, and they are going to be more and more attractive to people to want to be there. And then there's the workplaces that are getting it wrong. And slowly but surely, I mean, again, I know some people will want to work on site all the time, and that will be a norm for some organizations, because there will be some group who wants that. but I think there's going to be a growing population of high-performing hybrid workplaces or fully remote workplaces that create this alternative that supports us to live our whole lives, all genders. And that's going to be so, so powerful. Where we're going to go next is I got a chance to meet Mary at the Parents Forum. We are now going to be having the Parents Forum every year. In February, it's a chance for parents like Austin and Mary to join together and talk in community about all these great things and learn from each other. And I met Mary at the event and heard a little bit about her and her amazing story. And I know there's many, many positive things that have happened with Mary in her workplace. And she's going to talk a few about those. But we're also going to talk a little bit about some of the changes that are happening where, like many of you today, there are some questions about how remote or hybrid will work in their workplace. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that too. For those of you who are listening in to this live recording, you're going to hear the whole story. For those of you who are hearing the recording, we're going to give you a little recap of what happened. All right. Oh my goodness. What an amazing conversation we just had. And, you know, very briefly, it's this idea that really it's about trust and creating workplaces that promote trust, and that trust is a two-way street. And that, you know, we want, you know, we don't want to be tracking keyboard strokes and, you know, badges of swipes of badges. We want to be tracking how well people are getting their work done. And where they get their work done, as we've heard, could be, you know, excellent focused work at home, and getting just smart about what kind of work do we need to do where. So there's just so much more we could say, but we're running out of time. So I'm just going to wrap up by saying, hey, you know, we're so glad you're listening into this conversation. You can join our Facebook group, the Third Path Collective. This is the kind of things we like to talk about in our Facebook group. You can also find our recordings. We're going to replay them all summer long of these Thursdays with Third Path events. You can follow us on social media. There's just lots of ways for us to stay in touch with each other. And just a reminder, you know, we are a nonprofit. And so, you know, you can support our work by saying, hey, we want to make a donation today and support the important work you're doing. All right. Lots of free resources you'll find on our website too. But I want to give the last word to our wonderful participants today. And so, Austin, what's one word of advice you'd give to folks today, then Mary, and then Amy?
I think looking at and kind of just coming off a discussion around what I would tell employers, I think I would summarize it really quickly with, like, you can't solve today and tomorrow's problems with yesterday's solutions. I think we're looking at wanting to get the most value, wanting employees and wanting, you know, folks like me to go above and beyond. And I think companies have to start to realize that that also means going above and beyond back to the employee. And so what that is and what that looks like is, I think it's going to vary for everybody, but I think you need to assess what is the new solution for tomorrow's issues when it comes to how we manage this kind of work environment.
Well said. Excellent. Mary, a quick thought.
I think my advice to employers would be you support your employees through flexibility and providing trust first. And that encourages productivity. And also, to Austin's point earlier, if there is why isn't she at her desk? Ask yourself why it matters. So that would be my challenge to my leadership.
Wonderful, wonderful. And it turns out teams with high trust also have a lot more creativity and innovation. So this is just a really good thing for us to have at every level in an organization. And I know that Mary's building that with her team. So Amy, a last important takeaway.
There's so many that have come through my mind in this time, but because we're focused in the work we do on parental leave, I just want to emphasize that this is a moment when organizations have a chance to influence farther than parental leave. What you're doing around this time is building those employee skills and communication patterns and ways of working together far into the future. So I think I can sum that up by, if you want to be equitable, then act equitably. Question if you are, and just make it into the procedural of your day-to-day.
Yeah, normalize it.
Normalize.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Oh my gosh, we covered so many important things. I really appreciate your participation today. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.